well, it's not just the hard hub funding, right? Because there's funding to go into encampments and clean out the debris that's left behind.
Once again, the facts contradict the claims made by Mayor Alex Nuttall, which happens all too often whenever he is discussing the homeless crisis in Barrie. Despite Nuttall's overwhelming need to depict the homeless as something beneath himself and his supporters, most of these people had and have jobs, they owned or rented houses, and they raised families. Foremost, that ended when they became the victims of illegal evictions, scams and fraud, government incompetence, workplace injury, or chronic illness such as cancer. Any one of those causes could put any of us into the same crisis. However, to our self-righteous and supposedly devout Christian mayor, these victims offer a means by which he can generate a boogeyman that he can blame for everything that is wrong in the city of Barrie, for which he is responsible. Alex Nuttall also now faces an integrity investigation after being exposed by our media team for fraudulently using the homeless crisis as a means of clearing just one park in all of Barrie, the one closest to his home. This "not in my backyard" mentality is consistent with statements Nuttall has made about his desire to ensure that his children could play there safely. As mayor, Alex Nuttall has a responsibility to the safety of all the city's children, but his concern seems to have extended no further than to the needs of his own family. Alex Nuttall has also not denied and has refused to reply to questions about how his apparent abuse of authority as mayor might have increased the value of a house he was moving out of shortly after the unlawful eviction of the encampment, which was located just around the corner from Birksey Park. If it is established by Suzanne Craig, the Integrity Commissioner, that the mayor of Barrie used public taxpayer funds to unlawfully clear Birksey Park with the goal being to increase the value of his home or to appease the desires of his children, Alex Nuttall could face a variety of reprimands, ranging from fines to expulsion from his position as mayor. Contrary to the assertions being manufactured by Mayor Alex Nuttall, most encampment residents try to keep their area clean, and they bag their garbage and send it to the curb. It is the City of Barrie that refuses to pick it up, as ordered by the mayor and council. Then, as time passes, scavenging animals and weather tear into the bags, creating a noxious mess. Recently, outside a large encampment, a pile of garbage was left at the side of the road. Within a day, contractors for the City of Barrie picked it up. Why can't this be the standard for garbage collection at encampments? The reality is that the mayor and council are using smoke and mirrors to divert the taxpayers of Barrie from seeing their own incompetence, and in some cases, their personal profiteering. Like a magician playing with cards, they need to divert our attention from what they are doing and focus public concern on the encampments, which their policies help to create. They also need to generate a sense of urgency so that most people and local media will ignore their transparent violations of human rights and decency. This team of contractors are guaranteed to have cost taxpayers much more than would have been required if the mayor and council had chosen to work with the residents instead of goose-stepping over them. However, as is true of many forms of municipal decision-making, those in the encampments have no means of motivating the elected officials who negotiate lucrative contracts. So their wants and the best interests of taxpayers simply don't matter.
To ensure that we're cleaning up needles and drug paraphernalia that's been left behind. So the Heart Hub, yes, but there's also all these other things.
Stereotyping is inflammatory and deceptive, and the intent is again to convince people that those who are living without shelter are not truly human beings who are worthy of respect. Illicit narcotics are used far more by people who are housed than by those who struggle to survive on the streets or in encampments. The high cost alone limits the amount that those struggling to survive can use. Although addiction is an issue for some of the homeless community, not all people living without shelter are users. Also, when provided with appropriate disposal options, most of those who do use choose to do so as cleanly as possible, as they and their friends are the ones walking around the area. It is the Conservative government that is eliminating safe use and disposal options by banning effective harm reduction choices in favor of trying to force the poorest sector of our society into government-funded facilities, where they will be forced to undergo treatments that have been consistently shown do not work. It is well-documented fact, confirmed repeatedly in facilities all over the world, that compulsory treatment for addictions has never been effective anywhere. In sharp contrast, safe consumption sites, which have been banned by the Ford government, greatly reduce the risk of toxic reaction and secondary exposure. Safe consumption sites work, but they are very hard to run as a profitable venture, which is why the Conservatives want to eliminate them. All those politicians care about is grift and lining their own pockets, which is much easier to do when abusing the authority of the police to force people into lockdown pseudo-medical facilities where they will be forced to endure separation and suffering in the name of treatments that the government knows will never work. The reasoning behind it is that although not effective, the treatments cost a lot of taxpayer funds to force onto whoever they say needs whatever will generate personal profit.
It also includes temporary housing for individuals who are being removed from encampments so that they do have a place to go, and that housing needs to have support services around it. So you have the heart hub that the province has committed to the City of Barrie, but you also have these other services that's being committed here as well.
Since the day he was elected, Mayor Alex Nuttall has been engaged in a one-man war against the homeless community. The first action by his sycophantic council was to try to ram through, without standard public notice, a bylaw that would make it a finable offense for any Barrie taxpayer to spend their own hard-earned money to in any way help a person in need. This ban on benevolence extended to food, money, the tools of survival like tents and sleeping bags, and even a cup of coffee or a bottle of water. The proposed attack on our most vulnerable citizens was sufficiently barbaric to attract media services for across Ontario, which generated news posts across the country. The proposed criminalization of compassion was quickly quelled by the taxpayers of Barrie, who collected in the hundreds outside City Hall, and then moved their protest into the council chamber, where the encircled councillors suddenly found the compassion needed to ensure the civil rights of our poorest and most vulnerable citizens. Since then, the City of Barrie, under Mayor Alex Nuttall, has threatened to evict encampments, including those in isolated areas, even though the city has done nothing to provide affordable housing.
We're looking at working with the County of Simcoe, working with Barrie Cares and lots of folks from the community to make sure that we can get the sprung structure set up with the necessary services integrated to ensure that when folks are being removed from these encampments and into a more stable situation, that they also are being given the services to get out of that situation overall. And it's really important that we continue to focus on that going forward. Otherwise, it's a band-aid for one night. We don't want to be changing people's lives for one night. We want to help them change their lives for the foreseeable future.
Been 3 weeks homeless and here I am, still, no bed.
A bed for one night.
A bed for one night does nothing for me.
Have ahead of us.
I told this guy the other day I wanted to kill myself because I can't live like this anymore. The first time I heard about this hotel stuff was the first time that cop said it in the news 10 minutes ago. Only in the news, right? Only in the news.
Do you have belongings that you want to put in storage? Is that
You know what?
as well?
I had 2-bedroom apartment. All my belongings went in the fucking dump. That's where my belongings are.
What about your belongings?
$50,000 worth of fucking furniture and my life gone in the dump. So don't ask me if I want my sweater in a fucking van.
When it comes down to the brass tacks, I give a shit about my clothing. I want to be housed, warm, fed if necessary. Which
fed
I'm pretty
properly.
sure it is.
Fed properly. This is bullshit. A bag. A piece of one fucking meat. Please.
Bercy Park was the only park in which the Barrie Bylaw Enforcement Office and the Barrie Police Services took any action to evict an encampment, and we are not at all convinced that it is a coincidence that Mayor Alex Nuttall lived around the corner and was planning to move. If the house was sold, removing the encampment would most definitely increase the sale value of the property. The eviction was unlawful as the actions violated Section 7 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right to life, liberty, and security of the person, and the January 27, 2023 ruling of Justice Michael J. Valente, Superior Court of Justice, that protected the rights of the encampment dwellers in language that required very little interpretation. So, representatives of various agencies that work to support the homeless but are financed by Simcoe County or the City of Barrie brazenly lied to residents to coerce them to accept deals that the city later showed they had no intention of honoring. Now, Alex Nuttall wants Barrie voters to believe that he has suddenly developed a strong desire to help the same people he had evicted under false pretenses and acts of aggression. Alex Nuttall's actions since taking office are antithetical to the new claims of supporting those who he has repeatedly and viciously attacked in so many ways. We strongly believe that Alex Nuttall does not speak for most taxpayers in Barrie. On a provincial level, Ontario is represented by a supermajority of voters who, by a margin of 88% to 12, support humanitarian approaches to the homelessness crisis that has been created mostly by government mismanagement. Regardless, according to recent interviews in mainstream media, Mayor Alex Nuttall is determined to continue his campaign of evictions and destruction against our most vulnerable citizens. This desire to bring harm is hardly in line with the majority of Ontario's residents, and it is antithetical to Alex Nuttall's claim of following the teachings of the Christian religion. Alex Nuttall's embarrassing path to the mayor's office is the result of a wafer-thin edge of only 777 votes, out of an electorate of 31,604. That represented only 30.45% of votes cast. The full electorate totaled 103,795 eligible voters. So when Alex Nuttall was voted into office as mayor of Barrie based on only 13,401 votes, he did so based on the support of only 12.91% of the entire eligible voting base of the City of Barrie. Alex Nuttall's pathetic display of support represents only a minuscule level of confidence in his ability as mayor. This sense of hesitation and insecurity was mirrored in 2010, when Alex Nuttall was asked by his own campaign team to drop out as a candidate for the provincial Conservatives when evidence showed he had committed membership fraud. There are also credible claims that Alex Nuttall was asked by his own party not to run for a second term as a Conservative Member of Parliament. The previous mayor, Jeff Lehman, had won the office for the third time with 90.97% of the votes cast. Psychology teaches that it is a weak man or politician who would be driven to abuse the authority of power he has been granted to harass or bully the weakest members of our society. This accepted reality would also support an accusation made by a member of council who alleged that Alex Nuttall unilaterally ordered the Barrie Police Services and taxpayer-funded services like the City of Barrie Bylaw Enforcement Division to evict residents of the Boogey Park encampment, without consulting or seeking consent from the elected council who directly represent the taxpayers of Barrie. According to our research, which has been published and emailed to all members of council, but has not in any way been contested, despite having spewed vitriol at all homeless encampments, Alex Nuttall has taken no action against any other encampment. Our mayor focused his interest only on the park where he wanted his children to be safe to play, and which was affecting the value of the house and quality of life for his family. It is reasonably estimated that the eviction of the Boogey Park encampment cost Barrie taxpayers between $20,000 and $30,000, and it is evident the project was undertaken solely on the orders of Mayor Alex Nuttall, who stood to personally profit from abusing the human rights of the most vulnerable residents of our city. The thugs representing Mayor Nuttall also showed no mercy for the weak and lame. However, when the chance for personal profiteering was presented, the contractors who were destroying the lives of others were happy to accept special compensation from nearby residents who wanted to show their appreciation. During that brazen abuse of power, police further abused their authority by arresting a mental health professional who wanted to console her registered clients in the encampment who were being assaulted, and also a journalist who wanted to report on the abuses. Those are the actions of an oppressive city council controlled by a wannabe dictator who believes the law does not apply to him. Alex Nuttall has been advised that he will be summoned to answer to his actions at the trial of the journalist, but he has refused to reply to set up a meeting to accept the summons. He has chosen instead to hide behind security at City Hall. At an pre-trial adjournment hearing held on Monday, May 5, 2025, the prosecutor chuckled and said Nuttall would never show. Alex Nuttall will be served regardless of apparent cowardice, and if he does not attend at court, the journalist will seek a bench warrant, as a summons is not a joke. If you are a voter, you need to ask yourself, why would the mayor feel so empowered as to ignore the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and transparently violate the order of a superior court of justice, so he could abuse the rights of a homeless community that was a little too close to his home, but he will not willingly testify to his actions in a court of law? The mayor is elected to ensure your best interests and those of your family members and neighbors, which includes the unsheltered. He or she is not voted into office to appease their own wants and needs, or to abuse their authority to bully the weak, poor, and destitute. The next municipal election is being held on Monday, October 26, 2026.